welcome to the Sustainability Partnerships Agenda 2022. We're really happy to have an amazing lineup. But first of all, I wanted to just take a look back at 2021. It was our inaugural year. We launched this time last year in 2021. We relaunched what was the Sustainability Day of Action to Sustainability Partnerships. And I just wanted to take a look back over the past year, give thanks to some of the people who've been supporting us, and just go through some of the things that we did. So it really was an amazing year for us. It was a really exciting time. We met so many amazing people, learned so much about both healthcare and innovations that are out there in terms of sustainability. And we held 13 events throughout the year with a massive 1,400 sign-ups. So thank you so much to everyone for supporting us with our brand new brand, and with Nathan and I both being quite new to the circles that you guys share. Social media, we've got 4,480 of you followed us across our social media, LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter. So thank you so much for your support on our social media as well. And then we've got 1,500 of you signed up across our newsletter, and over 20k users visited our brand new site that we only launched in January last year. So we're absolutely thrilled that we've had so much support and we've been able to build such a thriving community around the Sustainability Partnerships brand. We held the Sustainability Agenda in January. We then ran an event with our partners at PHS Group about clean air. We then had an event on Earth Day itself. Sustainable technology in the NHS was super interesting in terms of the amazing innovations there are happening in terms of med tech, health tech. In June, we actually ran the Sustainability Day of Action, as was always the case in years gone by, but we moved it from March to June, and we held 3 events throughout that entire day. We had so much support from the community on that one. Removing plastics was a really important one this year, and we had some great speakers to talk about plastic alternatives. And then we had World Green Building Week, and that was all about new buildings, smart buildings, and the future of sustainable construction. Then we ran an event with our partners at Inenco, and those guys helped our community to understand about approaches to sustainability and carbon reporting. Then we had the Climate Change Summit, that was on Clean Air Day in October. We actually ran 2 events that day, and then was our amazing awards, where we had the opportunity to really give back to the community that had been supporting us so far throughout the year. One of our winners, Elaine from she actually won the clinical awards, is on our panel today. Not that we're showing favoritism or anything, but she was definitely, her trust was definitely a winner on those awards. And then we actually published a sustainability report in November as well, and that's still available for free for everyone to download from our website. And it literally was a report of everything that we learned from throughout the year in 2021, all the events that we had, all of the insights, innovations, inspiration from all of our amazing speakers throughout the year is all condensed into this one amazing report. So I really do encourage anyone to download that. It's free for everyone to download. And thank you to our amazing partners from PHS, Migraine Lab and Encore, Digital ID, Human Forest, Clarion Solicitors, PowerStar, Centre for Sustainable Healthcare, Yorkshire Dales, Selector Glaze, Whitecroft Lighting, Colliebox, GB Partnerships and Striker. We're hoping to build so many more relationships this year, find out so much more about what innovations are happening in terms of healthcare and sustainability. But that's all from 2021, and we just want to say a massive thank you again to everyone for supporting us, and hope that this year is going to be even better. Kicking off with the sustainability agenda. So we're really excited to have this amazing lineup today. We've got Will, who's been a supporter of Sustainability Partnerships throughout 2021. He's a Sustainability Manager at Christie NHS Foundation. We've got Joe, he's a Senior Sustainable Waste Manager at the University Hospitals at Bristol and Western NHS. We've got Elaine, as I said, who was one of the award winners at the Sustainability Partnerships Awards. Dr. Elaine Winkley is a consultant anaesthetist She's a clinical lead for sustainability at Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust and chair of Faculty of Sustainable Healthcare. You've definitely got the longest intro there, Elaine. And then we've got Alexandra Hammond, Head of Sustainable Procurement and Supply Chain at NHS England. Really, really excited to hear from all of these guys. So what we're going to do is each of our panelists is going to give a bit of an introduction to themselves, what they're doing. Some of them have slides, some of them are just going to talk through their own agendas for this year. What are some of the biggest hurdles, some of the biggest challenges, and some of the biggest solutions that they've seen and that they predict to see this year within sustainable healthcare. So I'm actually going to pass straight on to you, Alex. You're the first one on our lineup, so I'm going to stop sharing there and introduce Alex. We do have a Q&A session straight after all of our panelists have had their time to talk. So if anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A function, and please continue to just have your own conversations there in the chat function as well. More than happy for everyone to have their say on and hear what everyone else is doing. So thanks so much, Alex. I'll pass on to you now.
Thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here and really appreciate the time. I won't go on about everything that we're doing within NHS England and Improvement because there's so much, but I just wanted to give you some of the highlights. This is a really sort of complicated slide, but basically it sets out all of the things we intend to do and the structure behind it. So we have a mission and a vision within the NHS to have an NHS that is free of modern slavery, a net zero, fair and transparent supply chain by the year 2045. And my team has gone from being half a full-time equivalent to now 14 people over the last 12 months. There's a huge investment in this and sustainable procurement and supply chain, as well as other areas of sustainability across the NHS. We sit in the commercial team of NHS England, but we're really linked in with the Greener NHS team, and we work with them every single day. We have three key areas of work, so around net zero carbon, around delivering social value, and also eliminating modern slavery. I have a bunch of slides that I don't really want to share them all to you because I think a lot of this stuff you'll know already, but you know, we in the NHS have a huge impact within our supply chain. Our suppliers comprise about 62% of our total carbon footprint. And what you can see there in blue is what my team is in charge of working on and decarbonizing. So, you know, a lot in medicines and chemicals, a lot in medical equipment, but a lot in other parts of everything we do in the NHS, the food we buy, you know, the cleaning products we choose to use, the services we commission, all that stuff. So there's a really exciting piece of work at the moment about just really addressing those things one by one and trying to make the best net zero decisions. I hope that some of you will be aware of some of the how-to guides that we have released over the last few months. We have two that are on the NHS Future Hub at the moment. One is this one, the Operational Intervention Guide on walking aid reuse. So if your organization is looking at doing a walking aid reuse program or potentially expanding your program, I hope this guide will be useful to you. I can share the link to the guide in the chat as well. We also have one on medical device reprocessing that's been published in November. And that's really about you know, reusing particular specific medical devices that can be reprocessed in the UK at the moment. We're looking to expand this, but we've seen a huge uptake in this, and it's really fantastic. So we're working on getting as many how-to guides out to the system. Part of what this is trying to help answer some of the questions and the worries and the concerns people have, you know, like legal liability. You know, what if we give somebody a Zimmer frame and it's faulty? Whose liability? The how-to guides cover all of that work. and provide some really good reassurance about third-party liability insurance, that the risks are very low. So great work happening on our operational interventions. I'm really keen to know if people have ideas for the next guides. We've got some thoughts, lots of them actually, and we have a forum that meets every other month of sustainability enthusiasts, sustainable procurement enthusiasts in the NHS. So procurement people, sustainability people, clinical people, and we canvass them for their ideas. But I'd be really keen for those of you in the NHS to let us know as well. A big part of what we've been doing over the last year or so since our team came together is around our working with our suppliers. So we have this is a diagram you might recognize from the net zero report. Basically, in procurement, we have 16,500 kilotons of carbon sitting in supply chain and scope 3 emissions. That's a lot of carbon. And so what the net zero report aimed to do was identify what we need to do, what activities we need to undertake in order to get us down to zero. And what you'll see is that the big chunks of our supply chain emissions sit with our actual suppliers. So it's their emissions, their scope 1 and 2 emissions, mostly their suppliers' emissions. So our suppliers' suppliers. So it's a tricky business trying to get people to take part in this, because actually it's, you know, we can only influence so much. But what we have done is put together a really clear program and plan for our suppliers. And we were happily able to get that endorsed wholeheartedly by the NHS board led by Amanda Pritchard in September of last year. So she really understands the importance of working with our suppliers. And you know, in this quote here, you can see she says, we just can't do decarbonization of the NHS by ourselves. We really need to challenge our suppliers to support us and get on board. So I'm happy to share these slides, and this is also available on the Greener NHS website. But this is our supplier roadmap. These are the things we expect of our suppliers over the next few years up to 2030. There's a lot of stuff that we as the NHS need to be asking of our suppliers and challenging them and supporting them as well to deliver upon this. So essentially, I won't go through every one of these, but essentially what we're asking suppliers to do is give us their scope 1 and 2 emissions targets by 2023. We want to know what they're doing to decarbonize their operations. In 2027, we'll require them to give us their scope 3 emissions, so the big chunky bit that really is going to be the game changer. We're also going to be asking suppliers to give us the environmental impact of their products and services. So in April 2028, it'll be a requirement that any product and service provided to the NHS comes with a life cycle analysis, so that you as decision makers in the NHS and people who want to make good proper procurement decisions can compare like with like. That's not straightforward. I will just point out there's lots of methodologies out there. There are lots of different ways of skinning this cat. And so part of our work in the next few years is really to agree common methodologies and be really clear with our supply chain about what we're expecting. So that's a really exciting piece of work. I should say as well that we do have a bit of a grace period for small, medium-sized enterprises and voluntary community and social enterprises. We want to make sure this is accessible for all of our suppliers, and we're not inadvertently pushing our smaller suppliers out of our supply chain. This is a really important one that's coming online come April 2022. So in a couple of months' time, we will be incorporating a minimum 10% weighting in all procurements, regardless of size, regardless of type, on social value. So there are 5 themes within the social value model: fighting climate change, the net zero one, tackling economic inequality, supporting a COVID-19 recovery, well-being, and equal opportunity. So we've created some guidance to help with doing this properly. And the real aim around this is to use the procurement process as a way of having a conversation about what suppliers can do to support our aims to be, a fairer net zero organization as the NHS. And we need those things to be really measurable so they can go straight into contracts and make sure that they're monitored over the course of that contract. So my team is really part of that making that easy for NHS trusts to do, and shortly integrated care systems to do. And so that's a really exciting development, and I think we'll probably challenge us all. We won't get it perfect every single time, but really is important to make sure that we're challenging our suppliers. I mentioned as well, we're asking for their scopes 1 and 2 emissions from 2023. This is something for those of you that are procurement geeks like I am. This is Procurement Policy Note 0621. But really, this is a mechanism for us to ask our suppliers how they're doing on their scope 1 and 2 emissions, to set those targets really clearly, make sure they're visible, they're publicly available on their website, and that we as the NHS are reassured that they're robust and in line with NHS carbon emission reduction targets. And finally, a big part of our project, our work this year is going to be around launching something called Evergreen. Now, some of you will have heard of this, some of this will be brand new, but Evergreen is essentially a language that we will be using between our supply chain, our suppliers, and the decision makers within the NHS on how they're doing against our roadmap, that roadmap I showed you with the squiggly lines. How do they have those emissions targets? Great. Do they have an ethical sourcing policy? Great. Then they're early adopter level 1, and that will be a certification that suppliers can do themselves through our procurement system, Adamus. So there's lots and lots going on. We are running a session actually on Thursday of this week to talk through how we support. Stop sharing my screen so I can see you again. How we support the trust level carbon emissions. So as a national scale, providing trusts specific scope 3 emissions. So that's something that we're working on with the Greener NHS Analytics team and our own analysts within our team, who will be starting next month. So there's lots and lots of work going on to try to really raise the profile of sustainable procurement. We know it's a huge chunk of our mission to be net zero as the NHS. So we really need to make it easy for people to get involved with. So I'll leave it there for now, but it's brilliant to be able to chat with you guys, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for that, Alex. It was really, really interesting. A few things that people have brought up that I've completely forgot to mention. First of all, yes, I'm so happy that so many people have managed to join us today. I know obviously staff shortages and that kind of thing, so thank you so much for everyone who I know are doing 15-hour days. It's crazy, so I really appreciate that. Secondly, everywhere, a lot of people have asked. All the events that we've done before are all recorded. They're all on the Sustainability Partnerships website. You can go back and see them. Any links, presentations, guides, we'll post them in the write-up after this session, which is also being recorded, and will also go onto the website, and you'll all also get an email with the link, and it'll be going out on our social media. So Alex, I'll let you post the link to the guide, because people are really, really interested in that. So thanks so much. There's loads of questions already. We're going to do the Q&A after all of our panelists have had their little time to speak initially. A couple of questions have actually been about nutrition. So I would suggest that you go back to look at our event that we did on the Day of Action, which we had specifically a session about sustainable nutrition and food supply chain. So anyone has any questions around innovations around that and the future of sustainable nutrition, I'd suggest you go and have a look at that. Obviously, we can talk about that again in this session as well. But so that we are moving things along, I'm going to pass over to you, Elaine. So feel free to share or just talk through the points that you have.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my presentation. So it may help to visualize things. So my name's Elaine Winkley. I'm a consultant anaesthetist, and thank you for your introduction. I do have many titles, but my work within sustainability has created many of them in the last 18 months to 2 years. So as a trainee anaesthetist within the North East, I started to develop an interest in sustainability and seeing how my behaviours at work were very different with respect to waste and being sustainable in my lifestyle choices. And I got a great passion from working with some of my colleagues that you may know in the North East, Kathy Lawson and Richard Hickson. And I decided to push forward on it. So a large bit of the work that I've been involved in has been within my trust in Northumbria, but also now within Health Education England, North East and North Cumbria, developing the Faculty of Sustainable Healthcare to help provide education to doctors in training on this topic, because it's so important that we reach as many members of the NHS as we can, because it's the education that's given to them that helps them to make more sustainable choices in their clinical practice. So I am a consultant anaesthetist, also a mum of 3 children, and it was actually the behaviours of my youngest son when he was 2 at nursery that made me want to make an impact on what was happening at work. He came home and told me what was going in the wrong bin, and that he knew how to recycle and how he wanted to protect all the creatures in the ocean. And I thought, if a 2-year-old knows that at this level, why am I going to work and we're generating masses of volumes of waste and having no consideration where it goes? I'm originally from Accrington in the Northwest, but I've been in the Northeast for 20 years and very much enjoy the outdoors lifestyle, but have seen the beaches of the Northeast become more polluted with plastic over the last 10 years. And it was that gave me the call to action to step up and do something. Recent times, I think climate change has come to the forefront. So these photos are from my half-term break to the Lake District in October, when we had to evacuate because Windermere flooded. And again, that made it very real to myself and also the colleagues that had got trapped in this situation, that we have to act now. So I came passionate about it because I started to look at the figures, and as many as you'll know, we in the NHS we produce thousands of tonnes of waste, and we've got this percentage of 2% of the industrial and commercial waste within England. Because I work within operating theatres, I was aware there was a significant amount of single-use items coming in, and the waste generated was quite shocking. And a lot of it 2 years ago when I started at the Trust was all going into the clinical waste stream. It was all going into the orange bags, and no one was thinking about separating and segregating into different waste streams. And I also thought, as a public employer with 1.7 million employees, if all of us made little changes, it'd have a huge impact on our impact on the planet. This is a picture that I took from one of the operations. So in North placements. And this photo shows all the bags of waste from one operation, and we do about 3,500 of those a year. And that became a photograph that I used with some of my surgical colleagues to highlight the impact of what we were doing. And having these visual pictures that you can have makes it real to people, what we're doing and how much waste we're generating and all the things we're throwing away. So my target started on waste within the Trust. It is a massive trust that I work in that's got 5 or 6 different hospitals where we operate on each site. And it's been quite challenging to try and create the same behaviours on each of the sites. But we've just recently formed a network of green champions from different specialities, some in the community and some in our acute hospitals, and also some in GP practices, to try and unite the behaviours of our organisation and share that education of the choices that we make and making more sustainable decisions. So 2 years ago, as I say, we started, there was no recycling in the clinical environment, which I was actually shocked about. There wasn't a bag for your cans in the coffee room. So, and it took quite a lot of effort and determination to get that. But once we started the conversations with people, and clinician presence became paramount in the sustainability team, that it got behaviour change happening and more people were talking about it and more suggestions were being brought up about what people could do. I use this graph a lot that was taken from Chantal Razan's work about the different waste streams and the carbon footprint, and also flagging that the financial impact of the work that we were doing. We get savings if we recycled more and we wasted less, which is common sense, and it's what we do at home. So we introduced plastic recycling, and we also tried to make decisions that made that we were buying things that with less plastic. So for example, as an anaesthetist, I use a face mask. It came with a hook ring, which are the circular plastic things you can see in the picture. So now we source the face mask without that hook ring. So it's great to hear about procurement and all the challenges that they're now tackling so that we can buy more sustainable things with less waste. In the anaesthetic department, and this is a bit about what we're talking about today and what comes next, we managed to implement a lot of changes. So we removed desflurane, which is the most harmful volatile anaesthetic agent. It took a bit of work and educating some of my older colleagues that they could continue to give a good anaesthetic, but have less environmental impact. But providing them with the evidence, they adapted the culture, and we have made a step away from that. We've also started to look at cold sticks. So we use a lot of ethyl chloride spray to test anaesthetic blocks, spinals and epidurals. That is a greenhouse gas, and it has a significant carbon footprint. So by looking at an alternative, and again, challenging clinicians in their historical behaviours, and as a clinician, I feel I can do that. I can challenge my colleagues and I can offer up suggestions, and now they're very much taken on board and we look at things. So we've just rolled that out within theatres, and we're moving on to delivery suite with that soon. I also, as an anaesthetist, work in pre-assessment, and one of the previous talker slides mentioned about all the paper that we use. So we've gone paperless in pre-assessment. It's now an online package that we use, so we don't have to print things out. And that has been carried through within the trust, that we're looking at all our documentation going online and all our charts, so that reduce printing, reduce the energy needed for that, and also the paper waste that's generated. We're starting to look at the care pathways, and this is just by having my sustainability hat on when I've been doing my clinical role, looking at the number of journeys a patient makes to hospital before an elective operation, seeing if they can streamline that pathway. So a patient, for example, up in Berwick, which is the north of our footprint for the organisation, doesn't have to travel to North Tyneside, which can be about 80 miles, doesn't have to do that journey once to see the surgeon and then again to see an anaesthetist and be pre-assessed and get the tests. So if we can streamline the journeys that that patient needs to make, we can reduce the carbon with respect to travel. The big bit I'm passionate about at the minute and working with our pharmacy colleagues is reducing pharmacy waste. As you've alluded to, there's a massive carbon footprint within pharmaceutical agents. The amount of drugs that go out of date or are wasted within a department such as ours in the theatre complex is actually phenomenal. Every month, a number of items are taken back to pharmacy to be disposed of. So there's a huge footprint in manufacturing them. And if we don't use them, they then have to be incinerated as pharmaceutical waste. One of the things we're starting to look at is we have Omnicell technology that we can put the dates in to the expiry dates of the drugs. And we're going to try and look and see if we can share them between the other hospitals in the region. So if we've got items that are going out of stock, rather than just putting them in the bin, could they be offered up in a way to other organisations that may be using them more frequently than ourselves, purely to reduce that amount of waste that we're generating. We're looking at all the waste that's generated from items we procure in anaesthetics and ITU. We use a lot of packs, clinical care packs. A lot of these packs, the decisions have been made of what goes in them, but quite often I regularly empty things out that I'm not going to use. So we're in the process now, myself and my colleagues, of looking at the packs, reducing what we put into them in the first place and seeing if it's more suitable to have a slimmed down pack with extra open on items. And these are all things that I've picked up on my day-to-day work. We have started a big piece of work also on nitrous oxide reduction, which has been quite topical in the press recently, and in Entonox use. Not looking at just cracking technologies, but looking at reducing the volumes that we use and reducing what is sent back as well, and if we can switch off any of the manifolds. And in our trust, we are starting to turn off manifolds at the end of this month because nitrous oxide isn't as on trend as it used to be, and again, challenging clinical practice. The other part of my job, and I'll just talk quickly on this, is I think education is key. By talking about sustainability and the environmental impact of clinical decisions to my colleagues, it's changed their behaviours. And again, as a junior that rotated through different hospitals, there was no education given to me on what was important about decisions and how waste was managed. So that's why the faculty was set up with the help of Prof Kumar from Health Education England, North East and North Cumbria. So it's the first faculty in the UK. We started to improve awareness of those decisions and the environmental impact of everything we do by having workshops, and we're increasing the different types of workshops that we're running. We've got dentists involved as well, because doctors alone do not form the NHS. So we have to look broader. We have to look to everyone that works within healthcare to provide a baseline level of education. And we're hoping to develop more e-learning for health modules alongside the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare to provide this education remotely as well as in person. And this is where I always think that this journey started. This started with my children that are there, and it's their future. That is why I've been so driven into making the impact that I have within our organisation. But although we've made great steps in the last 2 years, I always think of where we've got to go. There's so much more that we have to do as a large organisation to have impact on the patients that we serve and their daily behaviours, and reduce the impact of what we are doing now to protect the health of future generations. So simple changes such as the anaesthetics that we use and the providers that we go to for things can have such a major impact that we've got a long way to go. But I feel very positive now than where I did 2 years ago. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks so much, Elaine. That's super inspiring. Really, really great to hear from your own personal experience. And I think that it's that thing of sort of asking why, you know, things have always been done this way, but why has it always been, and why can't we change it? Just asking those questions and starting to really think about that behavior change. And also you've got, you know, quite a disparate trust. Here we are in Leeds, we've got the amazing Leeds Teaching Hospitals, but it is very quite close together. But somewhere like Northumbria, and I appreciate the shout out of my hometown at Berwick, it is quite difficult to think, oh, we've got to go to Ashington just to see a specialist. It's really far away. So thinking about those trusts that cover quite rural, disparate areas, and how technology can be introduced to share things a lot quicker, it was super, super interesting. And just how passionate and personally you take this, it's super inspiring and refreshing to see. So people are asking a lot of questions in the Q&A. Panelists, if you see one that's specifically to you and you want to type an answer, feel free to do that. Otherwise, I feel like we're going to be met with like 100 questions by the time that we get to the Q&A session. I really appreciate everyone still having conversations in the chat function as well. I'm going to move straight on to you now, Will, if you want to go ahead and share your.
Right, hi, I'm Will Blair from the Christie NHS Foundation Trust in Manchester. I'm the sustainability manager here. I'm kind of covering sort of beginning the sustainability journey. Because a bit of background, I have been working at the Trust for a number of years now. I was originally just dealing with sustainable travel, and as time went on, I started to get a bit frustrated because I seen we'd been successful with sustainable travel, but we didn't seem to be making much inroads into the wider sustainability areas, and I felt that too much was being hung on the success of the sustainable travel work we'd done. So in around 2019, I kind of took a look at where we were. We had a sustainable development management plan, but it was a legacy one. It was from 2013. It tended to, a lot of the work we've done tended to focus on travel and recycling, lights, electricity. Although we had a sustainability committee in place, the membership of the committee had steadily dropped off, and by the time we got to 2019, there was only 2 of us attending the sustainability committee. So the drive had really gone out of the move to a more sustainable healthcare model. And there was obviously no full-time sustainability manager in place. So there was really no one to kind of tie everything together and push things forward. I kind of reached out to the wider trust through the engagement channels that we had, you know, to try and find if there was what the feeling was throughout the trust regarding sustainability, if there was anyone interested in getting on board with the Sustainable Development Committee, and particularly around the clinical side of the workforce, because historically it tended to just be facilities and procurement on the Sustainable Committee, and we never really had anybody involved from the clinical side. And I had approached the committee with ideas of trying to reach out to the clinical staff, but there was the feeling that we should try and get a new management plan in place and then look at getting clinical staff on board, but my feeling was we needed to do that at the beginning, because obviously the clinical staff are going to be concerned about the environmental impact of the healthcare system, and also they're going to have all the knowledge that we need to help develop our sustainable healthcare models, so they do need to be involved at the beginning. And I think we'd find that they would be very keen to get involved. And once I reached out to the trust through our facilities like our staff intranet and staff forums that we have, I was able to get a group of clinical staff to join our committee, and they really got the ball rolling and helping us expand the committee, whereas now we've got a membership of around 20 on a sustainable development committee, which helped us really review where we were up to at that point in time. We put together some new terms of reference for our committee, what we wanted to achieve and what was going to guide us, and that made clear that we were going to move away from this idea of it's being all about bins, bikes and lights, that we wanted to start looking at medicines and the wider procurement supply chain, every area aspect of the trust service we wanted to cover in the new committee and the management plan that we were developing. So we reviewed the legislation and guidelines that were available, and I made a point of starting to join some of the national and regional sustainability groups that were around, because this was going to be a new area to everyone. We wanted to see if we could learn from what other trusts had done, and we found a lot of support, especially on a local level. A lot of the trusts were a lot further along than us, and they're really helpful in providing some guidelines on where we could go and how we could get going. So we got a lot of support from those kind of groups. Once we kind of got the foundation of the new committee together, we took a look at what was the NHS Sustainable Development Assessment Tool, which we'd previously a colleague had made an attempt at trying to complete the assessment, but anyone that's familiar with the toolkit would know it was quite a hefty toolkit. There was a lot to cover in it, and there was around 200 questions you had to complete to get an assessment of where you currently were. In the past, we hadn't really been successful at completing it, I think, because it was people were emailing the entire toolkit around to the different leads, and they just see 200 questions, and it was hard to engage with them on that. Whereas once we broke it down a bit more and went to the energy lead with 10 questions, the procurement lead with 20 questions, it made it a bit more manageable for the different leads, and we were able to develop our new green plan and cover a more wide range of actions and objectives than we'd previously done with any of our sustainability work. And for this first year, we felt we needed to concentrate on getting some sort of baseline stuff together and some of the leadership aspects sorted out, so we have the foundations to build on the actions that we've put within our management plan. And one of the first steps we obviously made was to make sure it was publicly available, so we can be transparent to anybody that wants to know what's going on within the trust, because that was something we previously hadn't been regarding the management plan. It was sort of a document that was tucked away in an office somewhere, rather than what it should really be. It should be something that's available to the public, because I think it's really important information to the public, that they understand what the implications are for climate change in the health service and how we can do work to rectify it, and what the benefit is to patient healthcare by being a more sustainable organisation. So I think that was an important step to make, which we previously hadn't done. We've made sure we've got a net zero board lead, so there's someone on the trust board level that's going to lead on the work we undertake, and will take anything up with the board regarding how we need to progress and support us at a board level with the work we're undertaking. Training was an area that we were keen to look into, because I think that from our early engagement work, it was really highlighted that there was a lack of awareness around the link between healthcare and the climate change, as well as what people could do on an individual level or a department level to help support the sustainability cause, because everything seemed to be, all the understanding seemed to be that everything was about just dealing with the waste when it's already produced, but we want to avoid waste being produced, and obviously making it clear that there was aspects in the patient healthcare models that could be looked into how that could support the sustainability cause. So we definitely highlighted training as an aspect that needed looking at initially, and we've been looking at carbon literacy, and we've developed a carbon literacy leadership program. We're going to be looking at training the sustainability committee and then the trust board, as well as some other key leadership figures across the trust, before looking at rolling carbon literacy out further around the trust. The first staff to go on the training, that's going to take place next week. That'll be some members of the Sustainable Development Committee that'll go on that training initially, and that's due to start next week. And I think that'll be a really positive step forward for us. We've been looking at how we review our business cases in the past. Sustainability wasn't necessarily one of the things that were looked at in business case assessments. It tended to be the financial and patient benefit side of it that was looked at, rather than looking how the environmental impact of the business case could be assessed, and how that can benefit the patient side as well by looking at the environmental, and it can benefit the financial side as well if you consider the environmental impact of each business case. So we've got a draft impact assessment now that we're going to be looking at perfecting over the next couple of months, and hopefully getting approved and rolled out, so every business case starts to look at the triple bottom line of financial, social and environmental impact. And I think that's, for us again, is a good step forward. So we're not developing business cases that are going to be working against the net zero commitments of the NHS, that every business case should be contributing to that net zero ambition. Quality improvement training. We've got the quality improvement team well on board with sustainability. They sit on our Sustainable Development Committee, and they've agreed to pilot some quality improvement training that includes a net zero within the training. So discussing the idea of quality improvement based in the context of net zero and the climate emergency. So again, it's raising that awareness with staff and showing how they can develop programs in line with the net zero ambition, and try and get away from that narrative that seems to be out there that sustainability is expensive and it's going to cost loads of money, but sometimes there can be financial benefits by being more sustainable. Like I said earlier, reducing the amount of waste you have to dispose of can be beneficial. So it's really trying to work that into the narrative within the trust decision-making processes. Communication and marketing, we've put together a subgroup to look into comms and marketing, because again, what successes we had in the past, no one was really aware of them, because nothing was really communicated. It was just kept within sort of the committee and the officers that were making decisions, and not really engaging with people. And we're making sure we're developing it in a two-way. There's going to be a two-way process, so staff can engage with us with their ideas, and we can communicate back to them, so that there's a two-way flow of information to help us develop our foundations for going forward. As part of that, we've reviewed the staff intranet, and we got approval to make some pages focused on the greener NHS, and making sure it's broken down to all the different elements. So there's sections on transport, the sections on supply chain, the sections on medicine, and we're going to continue to build on that. And we've got some leads to help manage those pages from different areas. We use the kind of the Greener NHS community and the Greener NHS network and an ambassador program that was released last year around COP26 to kind of get that group of people together that can help manage those pages and provide information for it, and really take leadership in those areas to make sure we're keeping them constantly fresh and most recent up-to-date information can be put on there. Around our carbon and greenhouse gases, we've started a new energy project this year, which has looked at making sure, obviously, all our electricity comes from renewable sources, as instructed in the NHS standard contract, as well as work on a new energy centre, LED lighting installation, BMS optimisation, and a lot of that's come from successful funding through the public sector decarbonisation grant that was available via SALEX. We were successful and got a £9 million grant to help deliver a lot of this work, which is due to complete this year, which is a big improvement on our site. Sustainable care models, like I said previously, we've not really looked much into the patient clinical side of sustainability. This is obviously something we've started to rectify, and we've got clinical leads on. And one of our big success stories this year was around the innovation fund that was available for trusts to bid for. Our radiotherapy team put together a strong bid regarding modelling of the radiotherapy pathway. It was an area that hasn't been well researched, so it was seen as something that was of value to look into, and it's going to, the environmental benefits are going to be around whether there's better ways that the treatment could be delivered for both the patient and the trust. Can we reduce the number of times the patient has to come to site, where the energy wastage takes place on the site, to see if energy can be used better delivering radiotherapy. Is there different treatments the patient can have? So it's going to look at a broad scope of elements on the radiotherapy pathway to try and model that carbon footprint and come up with some improvements that will bring about benefits both environmentally, financial, and obviously social through improved patient care. The key kind of next steps for the next couple of months or so are going to be getting a corporate objective. We've had approval to have a corporate objective now for sustainability, to make sure this is right up front at the trust, and we communicate it to our stakeholders. Obviously, sustainability is the core objective for the trust, and we have to deliver net zero, and the rationale behind it. We're going to be working on a decarbonisation plan, again, to fully understand how we're going to achieve those energy reductions, carbon reductions we need to do along the NHS carbon footprint, which the first target is for 28 to 32, where there has to be a significant reduction. So we're going to try and model that with a provider to see if we can establish what steps we need to take to get to that target. We've started work on our climate change risk assessment, and that'll obviously feed into an adaptation plan to help us understand the implications of climate change on our service and what steps we need to take to mitigate the risks. And we're getting more and more clinical green champions on board, which are looking at, and they're doing work in their local areas on how they can support sustainability. We've got the anaesthetic team on board. They're looking at changing their processes, restricting access to certain gases, and also looking at the clinical waste they produce, the volume waste that's going into down the wrong channels, and how it needs to be put in the correct waste stream. So there's a lot of work that's now taking place on a clinical level. We're looking at they're looking at uniforms, how they can ensure uniforms are reused and reduce the amount of ordering that takes place. So the clinical teams are very much on board and are really helping push the sustainability agenda forward at the trust.
Thanks, Will.
That's really, yeah.
There's so much in there for us to take on. I wouldn't want to comment on every single thing, but really appreciate you sharing with us your journey and some of the pain points that you've had to deal with. The cross-trust conversation point is one that we've heard from so many people, and it's one of the reasons that we run sustainability partnerships, so that you guys do have this forum. And the other one about sustainability, the myth that sustainability is expensive. Again, that's one of the reasons that we run all of the events that we do, because sustainability isn't necessarily expensive, but researching sustainable options is time consuming, and time is money. So again, that's another reason why we want to run all these events, do the content that we do, the emails and everything that we do, so that you guys don't have to spend all of your time thinking about, well, what are the sustainable alternatives, because we're here to try and support with introducing some of the companies that we know for you guys to make links with. We've only got 10 minutes before Alexandra has to go, so if you do have to jump out, Alex, please feel free to. I know that you're typing away answering some of the questions in the Q&A, so I really appreciate you doing that in the background. I'm going to introduce you, Joel, and then we'll go straight into the Q&A once you've done your introduction.
Thank you, Georgie, and thank you for inviting me to the webinar. Sorry, I don't have any slides, so I'm just going to run through some of the points and the journey that we've had so far within the University Hospitals, Bristol and Weston. So the plastic problem, as we all know, plastic is an extraordinary material and they have an important role to play within the modern healthcare. However, as we know, production of plastic is energy intensive, uses toxin chemicals, and emits pollution and greenhouse gases to our atmosphere. Single-use plastic also creates large volumes of waste. We've seen this during the pandemic, which became a problem across the country with large volumes of waste. And I have to say I relate to what Elaine and Will did mention on their slides, where we see large volumes of waste being disposed of as infectious waste. It is predicted that there will be more plastic in our oceans than fish by weight by 2050. That's quite alarming. It's very alarming. And less than 5% of the plastic waste is currently recovered, which is again alarming. The emission pollution and greenhouse gases contributes to the climate change, which is the largest single health global public health. Currently, and Elaine alluded to this earlier, the UK NHS disposes of around 600,000 tons of waste per year, which around of 143 tons is plastics. As I mentioned, the problem's been exacerbated during the pandemic, where we've seen these large volumes of plastic coming through waste disposal, and not all the time compliant with regulations of that waste disposal. Operating theaters are one of the most resource intensive areas of the hospital, generating as much as 30% of hospital waste, and much of this waste is single-use plastics. But what we've done so far, back in 2018, UHBW committed ourselves to become a more sustainable organization by reducing the reliance on plastics, and we committed to reduce our single-use plastics. Just to give you some examples on plastic straws, cutlery, cups. And what we've done, we've stopped within catering areas, stopped buying plastic straws. We replaced plastic cutlery and skewers with the wooden equivalent. The trust retail areas, the outlets with seating, using crockery instead of disposables. Disposable food containers have changed from polystyrene to recyclable materials. And we offer discounts to not only public, but staff as well for the use of reusable cups. However, as a large organization and able to make a difference, we did ask ourselves, is this enough? And you guys can guess what we've said, no, is not enough. So we've, like many trusts across the country, we've declared the climate emergency back in September 2019. And I've got a note here from our chief executive. I think this is quite important because there is no doubt that the senior leadership team involvement and support with all this is paramount to what we want to achieve. And he stated, there is a strong evidence about the impact of climate change on health. The quicker we can take action on climate change, the quicker we will improve the health of people right now as well for the future generations. And I think that it strikes a point straight on. With that, we've launched our 2025 Sustainability Development Strategy. Within that strategy, we have some sustainable goals. I'm talking from my point of view as the senior sustainable waste manager for the trust. Some of those goals is the reduction of carbon by 2030, reduce the levels of waste that the trust is producing towards a zero waste, and zero waste to landfill. As I've mentioned earlier, I think it's quite important to have the support of the senior leadership team and to show their commitment to us. The trust developed a sustainability arm within our estates team, where we have a head of sustainability. Within that team, I've got myself. I've got two other colleagues as the senior green travel manager and the senior energy manager. We also created 5 work streams. These work streams varies from sustainable care models. So this is led by our transformation team, where they are looking at telemedicines STP digital work, and smarter working, and care closer to home. The other work stream that we have is direct CO2 emissions, which is led by our energy manager, and they look at energy, water, and aesthetic gases and capital projects. We've got the sustainable procurement. So this is looking at all procurement activity across the trust. The cleanware framework looks at clean air hospital, the transports, green travel plans, etc. And myself, I lead on waste management. So looking at how we can educate staff. Again, I just going to refer to Ellen because I so relate to what she said throughout her presentation around staff not knowing how to dispose waste, and trying to educate our staff. But also we have to be accountable because the trust did invest heavily on ourselves and we want to deliver our sustainable objectives. So we've created the Sustainability Implementation Group, which is led by our Director of Estates and Facilities. We've created a Sustainable Development Board, which is led by one of the executives, which reports directly to the senior leadership team. And I think that framework does work perfectly and throughout make us accountable to deliver our sustainable objectives. We don't know, of course, all the solutions, but we know that we need to do things differently. This was our start point, and from that start point to work out what our unmet need was, wanting to reduce our plastic footprint, to reduce single-use plastics, make the most of plastics we use, increase recycling. And what we realized, it was vital to change our waste management to enable this, of course, making sure that we continue to deliver the healthcare safely. So by reducing healthcare plastic footprint, decouple health delivery from over reliance on single-use plastics, supports carbon reduction by maximizing use and improvement of recycling of plastic. And a big point here that we've discussed throughout, we have to spend to save. So we need this approach because most of us know sustainability don't come cheap. Not all the objectives are cheap, but if we invest now, we will take those rewards in the future. And this is where it gets really excited for myself. I'm leading on a project, we call it the EcoQuip Plus project. So this is a collaborative innovation procurement project in the healthcare sector. And it builds on highly successful predecessor, which was called EcoQuip, that produced impressive outcomes and award-winning procurements through the participating hospitals. At the moment, involves 4 hospitals across Europe, we being one of those. The project is running between 2020 and 2024. We've had the financial support for the time that we're spending during the project. And what we're trying to do is going out to procurement in a different way, if you like. So currently we are working with our procurement colleagues to deliver our prior projects, if you like. And plus the project means that access to know-how and support the different approach to the procurement, the innovation, and the forward commitment. So what that means, what we've done, instead of going through, my contract is ending now, I'm going to go to procurement, we go through the normal frameworks, and there is the ask of delivering a cost-saving contract. However, what we don't know is how we are supported in delivering our sustainable objectives. We don't know what innovations are out there, and how we can be supported. So we turned the whole thing upside down. And I can share all this with you guys. We turn everything upside down. We're working on a web page where we've done 2 statements of demand. One of those is towards zero waste, environmental sustainable waste management solutions for hospitals. And the other is towards zero waste operating theaters. So this is to find solutions to support the progressive transition of zero waste operating theaters in line with the waste hierarchy. This one is led by an aesthetic consultant. And we're making various progress with this project, and we're really excited. As I've said, we want to follow the waste hierarchy, minimizing the use of single-use plastics, and other single-use items, increasing the uses, the progressive, the sterilization, the cleaning technologies, and other services that we are not aware at the moment. We want as well to eliminate problematic and unnecessary plastic packaging through the reduction of quantity of plastic packaging, eliminating unnecessary packaging, and any necessary packaging is 100% reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And that's me done. I'm so sorry that I don't have a presentation, but I will definitely prepare something that I can share with you guys as well around the project, the EcoQuip project. We have so far the support of various trusts across the country, including Newcastle, Manchester, Gloucester. And if you guys want some more information, please don't hesitate in contacting me. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate that. I think that the plastic piece is really core to everything that you've done, and maybe we should get you in touch with our partners at Colliebox, because it sounds like you'd be really interested in what they offer and what they've been implementing in hospitals. So what I'm going to do is jump into some of the questions that have been asked around both on the Q&A and in the chat as well. So there's quite a few in both. One of the ones that was asked quite earlier on, it's about nutrition, and like I said, we do have our the webinar that we ran earlier last year on taking a bite out of NHS carbon emissions, I think we called it. But if any of you guys do have any thoughts or anything that you've seen or that you're implementing in terms of the actual food and ensuring that we are buying locally and considering the carbon footprint of the food that's served in hospitals and other premises of the NHS. Open question to anyone, so feel free to jump in if anyone's got any thoughts on that. If not, we will probably bring that up again this year. One of the questions that I think that is really important, that from speaking to some of the partners that we've spoken to, and I'm thinking specifically back to the Tech in the NHS event, a lot of the innovations that are coming out are being produced by really small companies with, shoestring budgets, but they're on the cutting edge of technology and they really want to implement sustainable solutions through tech. And the concern, I think, for those guys is, from what Alex went through and said, we are now going to have to make sure that the companies that we are working with have these sustainable credentials. What my concern is that bigger companies are able to outsource their sustainability reports and have really multifaceted sustainability reports, whereas small 3-4 man band, they may not have the capacity or the budget to do a sustainability report. And I'm just wondering what everyone's thoughts are on the pros and cons of obviously us wanting to prove the sustainability of the suppliers, but on the other hand, potentially adding barriers to those small companies that have, those cutting edge solutions. Elaine, do you want to jump in on that if you've got any thoughts?
So I know in our trust, we have a director of innovation, which I never knew existed, who contacted me. And some of the new technologies that we're looking at is working together in partnership. And again, looking at if that report would be needed, would we be able to fund the resource that is needed to do that? So I don't think it should stop small companies coming forward. And I'm sure other trusts have got similar people within innovation and research that we may be able to find money within an organisation to support or trial with a small company to see what they're doing, to see if it's going to be useful.
That's really, really refreshing to hear. And I know that there are some incubators out there who are working specifically within health tech, who work with quite a few different startup companies, and then they're going as sort of a collective to the NHS to say, here are some cool things that some of the companies in our collective are working on. Will, do you know anything about some of the smaller companies who maybe are trying to get onto the procurement framework where you are, and if there's any barriers that you've seen them having to deal with? I think that Will might have frozen. Joe, do you want to take that on? We'll see if we can get Will back.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, I mean, as I've mentioned there, I think one of the biggest problems, we have big players in the waste market. I'm talking from a waste perspective, and it's quite hard for the small and medium companies to get into those frameworks, and that's why we're doing things differently. So we're doing a prior information notice that will be going out either this week or next week, just to entice all those people to come forwards. Otherwise, if you go through a normal procurement process, if you like, which we will, we're not deviating from our procurement obligations, not at all. But what we're trying to understand is what's out there that can support us with innovative technologies, and how can support us treating those waste materials that at the moment just goes into clinical waste and is quite expensive. I mean, I myself, at the beginning of the pandemic, I went to a waste plant, I ripped through bags, and yeah, it was hard to see how much recyclables was within those wastes. But at the moment, we don't have any alternatives to treat those plastics or those wastes.
Yeah, so obviously what you're saying is you're trying to procure less plastic because you don't have necessarily the processes in place to deal with having to recycle sort of complex waste loads. There's some really great conversations in the chat specifically around that tech piece as well. I love hearing about Patients Know Best. There's been a link to that with some work that's happening out in the Hull University teaching hospitals, and that's like a patient portal where people are able to access their own health records. Again, that's really important in terms of the patient travel. That's part of that big donut that we were sharing earlier on with emissions in terms of patient travel. So that's a really interesting innovation. I wonder if anyone can jump on this question from, I think that Will might be trying to jump back in, from Mike, who's mentioned about carbon literacy training. Is there any information on the success of cascading this through the organisation? Does it work best via green champions, which is I know something that Will was talking about, or via traditional? Maybe Elaine, you can let us know, did you have any green champions other than yourself that were able to sort of seed the messaging through, or was it just sort of an overarching message that just was cascading down to everyone?
So when I first put my head above the parapet and went to the sustainability management team, I was the first clinician, and I think that was alluded to by Will, that there were not clinicians involved. But on the shop floor, there were a lot of clinicians from different specialities that were like, we need to do something. This is not good. We need to step up. So the Green Champions out there, they've only just got their official name and we've rolled it out. But just, I think people are out there that are doing a lot at home, but they just don't know how to act within their organisation. So by uniting them and giving them a label and a forum in which they can speak, and it's a safe space where ideas are shared, amongst, you know, domestics, healthcare, porters, all walks of life are in this Green Champions network that we've got, so that then we can raise them with the management team and they can pick up on them. But I think you've got to cascade through all different levels, not necessarily with carbon literacy, but with the key messages. So with carbon literacy, I think it is quite specific. And it's those people that want to enact a change. And I think that at a higher level, your sustainability officer needs to have that training. And some of the clinicians have done, you know, small modules on it, so we understand it and we understand how behaviour change can impact on the carbon footprint of a task. But again, with time and resource, I think you need the two different worlds to just keep uniting and discussing things. Georgia, I think you're on mute.
That was a really good point there. Now I'm going to forget what it was that I'd said. It was the fact that we've had some really great conversations with the anaesthetists over the past year. You guys are really passionate when it comes to reducing particularly those greenhouse gases. We even saw the hashtag ditch the deaths, which I know you have ditched deaths in your trust. So the deaths following learning about some of the impact of the greenhouse gases through anaesthetists has been super interesting. I'm really glad that you guys as a contingent are some of the most passionate about reducing some, because you can just see some of the low-hanging fruit is right there to be like, you know, just stop using this, start using this, turn the manifolds pieces. It's really, really interesting to learn about. So if anyone does want to hear any more about that kind of stuff, it was the Clean Air Day event where we had some amazing anaesthetists on the panel there. Will, thank you so much for rejoining us. We lost you for a little bit there. I thought that maybe you could give us some insight into how you feel about whether it's best having the traditional comms around sort of carbon literacy and training, just in about sustainability in general, or if you've got those green champions in place, and what kind of effect you feel that those people have when they have that official title.
See, when we've been developing our training package, one thing we've been mindful of is how we go about it, because obviously we tend to attract the converted already and people who sort of speak the same language as us, and we'll be trying to make sure we're capturing groups of people that aren't traditionally on board with sustainability, who haven't really had much awareness around it. So obviously in developing our carbon literacy project, we're making sure obviously we're training the sustainability leads and the board leads, which we feel need that overview and understanding, as well as trying to capture some people who haven't really been involved with sustainability. But as to like the green champions in that, the people that we've captured who identify themselves as green champions are people that have really been on board with sustainability for a while. So there's a question of how much knowledge and stuff we're giving them. So we are looking at seeing if we can take some of the training that we've developed through like carbon literacy and other sources, whether we can come up with smaller bite-sized packages that people can digest, you know, how can they contribute, what they can do personally in their area. And obviously not necessarily go into all the big detail around the bigger picture around the net zero and stuff like that, just seeing what they can do on their level, how they can contribute to with their local knowledge, what potential information we need for them. So we're trying to work with there's a group of us that are kind of working on how we can develop bite-sized training that can really grab a wider range of audience, and that's been led by the quality improvement team, some clinical reps and myself, to see if we can provide information that we feel that they could use in their area, but not necessarily be too heavy onto the sustainability side, because we think if it's the concern is, like I say, we may only attract people that are already really on board with sustainability, but we want to try and get some people that haven't done much in the sustainability area. So it's really about getting some quick and simple things they can do in their areas. So it's how we can take that broader package and break it down a lot. I'm not sure if that's clear.
Yeah, no, definitely see the pros and cons. Obviously, you want those people who are passionate to have that forum of discussion, but at the same time, you don't want it to be an echo chamber. You don't want someone who's super interested in it just to be the only people who are sat there saying the same thing to each other over and over again, and there be no change. And I
Which is
think,
what we
like,
found with the Sustainability Committee, because when we first reached out to get the Sustainability Committee together, we pulled all the champions together, but then a lot of the areas where we didn't have work taking place, we weren't getting anybody. Like we've currently got no rep in the medicine and pharmacy side of stuff, which is obviously a big issue that we need to resolve. So it's kind of making sure we get stuff into areas where we've got no contact at the moment, which is why we need to be careful how we're developing the training and make sure it's something they can do in the time they've got available. Because again, asking them to dedicate a lot of time, there's again the risk that we might only get the people that are already on board with it rather than some of the people that haven't really been brought on board with the journey.
and I hope that maybe, you've got the opportunity now to speak to someone like Elaine, for example, and say, hey, Elaine, have you got any just real quick stats or examples of how people are like sharing medicines before they go out of date across your trusts, and then trying to cascade that information, pick different great examples from other trusts and using this as a forum to meet other people. If you do have any other stuff that you want to share with us that we can have on our blog, that we can go out on our social media, any stats or any of the literature or anything, more than happy to host any of that information. From any of our speakers or anyone in the chats and the participants today as well. And Joe, did you want to let us know about how you're feeling about the distribution of training across the people that you work with as well?
Yeah. So we're doing a lot of work with everyone across the organization, and that includes myself. I'll just give you a little bit of background so you understand. So I started with the trust 16 years ago as a cleaner. And I know the other side, if you like. So I know what is to push a bin, how you treat it, etc., etc. And that's the work that we've been doing as an organization. So we involve those people that otherwise would be just left to the side. So we involve them into creating training packages, because a porter, they know the hospital inside out. They know which type of waste goes into each waste stream. The same as a cleaner. We involve those people in coming into meetings, for example, and to be decision makers as well. And I think that's quite important to build those training packages. So currently we are working in the creation of a training package that is delivered to every single member of the trust, independent if you are executive or porter, cleaner, a doctor, whatever it might be. And the training is designed to your specific area of work. And I think that's something that's been missing. At times you go into training packages and you speak with people, is very generalized, where you have people working in office and you asking how to dispose of a clinical item. They don't know, of course. So that's our approach. But at the same time, I think we need to have the conversation across the patch. I think there is a lack of communication across NHS trust when it comes down to training, for example, and how we can deliver that.
What an amazing story. You should have told us that from the beginning. I can't believe that's where you started out, and look how far you've come. It's clearly down to your dedication and your just being really passionate about what you're doing, so congratulations to you. What an amazing journey. We do have a quite a long last question. It's not quite, it's more of a comment / question. It is aimed at you, Elaine, but I'm sure that everyone will have some comments on it. So this is Graham, who is driven by the recent birth of his granddaughter during the pandemic, on the principle that prevention is better than cure, and it would help if the NHS could benefit the healthy as well as the ill. He understands that poor air quality contributes to 60,000 premature deaths per annum, and treating patients with respiratory issues costs NHS 20 billion per year. How about installing solar roofs? So we know a lot about what's been happening recently about the use of solar within the NHS. Car parks to provide green power to the hospital, and with integrated low-cost, slow EV charging points. And yeah, so basically just about sort of EVs, emphasizing that it's about cost and range, and it's not about cost and range, it's about life and death. So throughout the year, we have talked a lot about how we're in a catch-22 position, because the NHS, I think, it's about 5% of the carbon footprint of the country itself, and it's a bit of a snowball effect in that the bigger the estate of the NHS becomes, the more carbon it produces, therefore the more people that they have to look after because of things like air quality related diseases, and therefore the estate has to get bigger to look after more patients, and then therefore there's more carbon, and it's just kind of a rolling thing. And it has been something that has been brought up quite a lot over the past year, and I wonder if any of you guys do have any comments or anything that you've talked about around that sort of snowballing effect of the NHS and its estate. Do you want to go first, Elaine, and we'll go then to Will, then Joe, and then we'll have to finish off, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I started to reply in the chat, and I think
sorry.
It's all right. Very much, we have to promote active travel and transport, not just for patients and staff, everybody. And I think if you can walk or cycle to work, then we should. And that's something I've always been passionate about, not just about sustainability, but for mental health and well-being. It gives you that clear break from I'm leaving work, I'm getting some fresh air, I'm in a green space. But we have to make that easier, and I think you have to make it safe as well. So as a female, you are aware of where you're walking. And I've raised this with our trust. We need well-lit cycle and routes and walking routes to hospitals and trusts, and or little groups of people. If we're all travelling from one area where there's housing into the local hospitals, then we could cycle together, and we are starting to try and develop those networks. But I totally agree, it's not about switching your car necessarily, because your car still uses energy irrespective of whether it's electric or diesel. If you can actively walk to work, you're doing benefits for yourself as well as for the planet.
Yeah, Will, do you want to jump in with the thoughts on that as well?
Well, yeah, I come from a travel background, and I've always been big on the active travel side of stuff. And I would just again like to pick up on that point around the EV points, because I know in one of the comments they talk about providing free charging for EV points. That's not something I've supported in my local trust, because again, I think it's incentivizing in car travel and people not living active lifestyles. I think it doesn't necessarily benefit the users as well, because it makes them dependent on a free source of electricity for the vehicles as well. So I don't actually think it's necessarily in the best interest as well. But I think the priority around travel should be the active travel for both obviously the staff and patients. So I don't really agree with providing free electricity for EV points, and I have obviously expressed concerns on a local level as well. I think electric vehicles seem to be getting too much attention and noise at the expense of cycling and walking and public transport. It seems to be a lot of dialogue about getting people out of internal combustion engines into electric vehicles, but that's still an active lifestyle. It's still congestion. It's still all the things that are negative associated with NHS sites and stuff like that, and health and well-being. So the focus would really be on making active travel safe for people and appealing to people, not rather than just focusing too much on the EV side of stuff. It's important, it's got a role to play, but it shouldn't be the main mode, and it shouldn't be getting too much of the attention that it seems to be getting at the moment. And it's a concern I've heard in a few forums around the push to EV, that it seems to be at the expense sometime of active travel and public transport.
Yeah, really, really good point. You're not wrong. And it's the media, and it's, the celebrity around some of the EV vehicle company heads, which we won't give any more airtime to on this forum, and you know, it's just like the excitement around it. But you're right, you know, it's still energy at the end of the day. And Joe, did you want to jump in? Got a couple of minutes before the end.
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I agree with Elaine and Will. I think there is a lot of emphasis in EV vehicles instead of promoting cycling to working or walking to work. I mean, we are a city centre hospital and in one of the busiest roads in Bristol, and we see the impact firsthand. However, if anything, a good thing that came out of the pandemic and in early days walking to work, I started to see more people walking and cycling, which has been really fantastic. But I think we need just to advise people on those methods a lot better.
More questions and comments and things, but we are going to have to leave it there. Obviously, we could probably chat about this all day, but everyone is very, very time poor right now. So I'm just going to quickly finish off with letting everyone know about some of the other events that we definitely have coming up. So we have quite a few in the diary. The ones that we are definitely going to be doing this year, the next one up will be in April for Earth Day. Moving plastics is definitely going to be coming up as well. Oh, I've got June and July the wrong way around. In July, because it was just so important last year, and we had so many things that I think that we've left unfinished in terms of the conversation around that. And then obviously we will always have the Sustainability Day of Action, which is in June, not July. They're the wrong way around. That's my fault. You can contact us, info@Sustainability Partnerships. If anyone wants to run an event with us, if you want to speak on a panel, if you want to just share guides, resources, anything, please do email us, and you can follow us across LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We also have a Vimeo account where all of our videos are stored, and all of our previous events and this one will be found on sustainabilitypartnerships.uk. Please visit the site to view any of the previous webinars that we've run before. There is a hope that we might be able to do something in real life this year. Last year, there was obviously the hope to do that, but it just never really materialised. So there may be something that we're able to do, hopefully, across the country at some point this year. So please keep an eye out for that. Without anything else, I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of our panel today. I think that yes, there's things that we need to work on, but I feel like there's so much more positivity in comparison. I mean, there was loads of things to work on. There was loads of positivity this time last year, but now it feels a little bit more tangible. I think maybe COP26 had a big part of that. There's also actually seeing what the NHS has managed to achieve in the last year, looking at that 2040 goal and actually saying, do you know what, we're all in this together, and we're actually coming towards that collective goal, and we're actually seeing some difference. So can't wait for the rest of the year, all the other events that we have coming up. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today, and again to the panel for sharing your thoughts, and just for fighting the good fight, and all of your efforts. We really appreciate it, and hope that you carry on, and carry on being part of our community as well. So I'm going to leave it there. So have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.